For monogamy, it's achieved once you find someone to commit to.
All right, now do it over and over again. Every day.
Every freaking day.
Yeah.
And it's like,
without like actually considering for yourself, like, okay, what are these? Yeah. What's the framework? What are the rules? And where do I see myself in that?
And what you get into relationships for at the beginning change over time.
Totally.
But the way that we conceptualize monogamy, it just is.
Yeah.
And the only rule that we have for it is you can't fuck anyone else.
That's pretty much the hard rule. And that seems to be what everyone is doing.
Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Intellectual Podcast. We're just putting just a little dash of nuance in the polarizing conversations of the internet. I'm Jem.
And I'm Renee.
And we are your hosts today when we are talking about part 2 of our infidelity conversation, where we're going to hopefully attempt to unpack the very institution of monogamy. You can't have an affair without first being required to be committed in a relationship.
Exactly. Yep. One has to happen first before the other. I agree.
And I'm just a disclaimer for everybody involved, you too, Renee,
thanks.
because I will be saying some things to challenge this monogamous idea that we all take for granted. And that is by no means me invalidating the structure of monogamy. Me personally, I think it's very useful. I think it's very practical, and I think it provides a lot of value for most relationships. But I don't think it's above critique.
Yes.
And I want to open up a discussion, open up a perspective around it that challenges us to hold monogamy accountable for the things that it's promising to give us. And then we can therefore have better relationships as a byproduct of that.
Yeah, better monogamous relationships. Very well put. Yeah, I agree with that. I also, too, am a monogamous human being, but more so because it seems like the ultimate challenge of life, like being able to have a long-term, like committed partnership. And then I think also, too, like I'm, very much aware of like the way that I grew up. Like I understand that has completely informed why I prefer a monogamous relationship. Like all the messaging that I've received throughout my life of like, oh, the ultimate love. And I want that and I want to achieve it. And I'm a competitive person with myself. So if I can achieve the ultimate lifelong partnership with someone, the most fulfilling situation, then I will be very satisfied.
Why not? Why not?
Why
prove
not
to
strive
yourself
for
that you're able to accomplish what so
Exactly.
many people, 50% of our country seems to fail so badly at.
Precisely.
Which, to that point, I will say a little fun fact.
Yeah.
I found out the other day that 50% of marriages fail, right?
Yeah.
Of those 50, like 80% fail because of infidelity.
Oh, wow.
Isn't that crazy?
Wow. I did not
I was
know
like,
that.
wow, that's so like.
Damn.
Again, it puts into perspective the whole conversation, because
It's
that
so
would not
significant.
be a thing if monogamy wasn't a thing.
Right.
Everything else is fine.
Yeah.
But most marriages fail because of infidelity.
Because of infidelity.
Oh my goodness.
That's
Is that a failure of the
insane.
institution?
Maybe.
Why are so many people cheating?
Right. I don't know. Well, maybe we do know. Like we said, I think that like the ways that we think about monogamy and the ways that we're like operating within it, and like, how do I put this? The ways that we're operating, the tools that we're using to like facilitate monogamy and do monogamy seems to be
Do
like,
monogamy.
to do monogamy
Yes.
seems to be somewhat flawed. There's certain rules like which we'll discuss and whatnot that it's like, but we still have to be able to have these conversations even within a monogamous relationship.
Yeah.
There has to be these things that are still allowed so that we don't get to this place where, because no human wants to feel completely restricted, completely withheld in any way. So how do you have that, prevent that, but also maintain a monogamous relationship?
Because what monogamy, I think, or maybe this is the intention of what everyone is trying to achieve when they pursue monogamy,
Yeah.
is commitment structure
Yeah.
and stability, trust.
Totally.
That's what monogamy is trying to do.
Mm-hmm.
And if you just are withholding all these things because you're trying to maintain this structure, you're not really participating in the promises that it's trying to achieve.
Totally.
So,
yeah. No, this is very true.
This is very true. But before all that, mental. Stop. Because then I get confused. What do you call those things? Wellness check.
A wellness
That's
check.
What it's
I was like, it's like a
called.
mental health check.
Yeah, like it's a wellness check. A wellness check.
A wellness
How you
check.
doing, Renee?
How am I doing?
It's mid-quarter. We're just checking in to see how you're feeling.
Yeah. Thank you. I knew this was coming. This was my idea, actually. But now that it's like happening in this like actual moment, I like my body just. I have to be honest, okay? I have to be honest.
How are you doing? Besides you tensing at your own idea. Yes. It's fine.
I'm doing well. I am doing well. I am newly single, and that has been, which is actually kind of funny because now today we're talking about monogamy, and as usually as breakups do, you kind of reflect on monogamy and like being with one person for the rest of your life, et cetera, et cetera. So it's definitely been something that's been playing in my head for quite some time. But I also realize I have been single for, at the time of us recording this, for about like a month and a half now, 2 months.
Question for you.
No, 2 months.
Just for the people.
Yeah.
Did you reference our episode about breakups while you were dealing with this breakup at all?
Did I take my own advice?
Yeah, actually.
Yes, I did take my own advice. Oh my gosh. Yes. Yeah. No, I think I took my own advice. I'm trying to remember like all the advice that I gave, to be honest.
Cut them off completely. They're not your friend.
They're not your friend.
That's really what I remember.
Yeah, that was just, probably like the main thing. Especially, the immediately. Yes. Yeah. We are currently not in contact anymore. It also was like, it felt a little like awkward. No, for like me, like with a podcast, like initially being broken up because I have been in this relationship the entire time. Wow, yeah, we're in our doing our podcast, and that really informed a lot of like the current advice and perspective that I was giving. So it's been interesting to enter into this space from like a person who is now single and kind of and really transitioning, because that transition from not being in a relationship anymore to be like, okay, now I'm just like back to being on my own. It's like kind of weird, but like also like, you know, it is what it is.
Right. You're not completely different either.
No,
so
I'm really.
Like, she's about to tell you some fuck girl shit. All of a sudden, guys, like you're not.
I've completely switched up.
So just disregard everything she was saying before.
I've said, yeah, you know what? Actually, my advice has completely changed on everything. And I will be just chaotic.
Dude, imagine if that was
the case. Dude, oh my god.
We have to change our name. No. Like we could not call ourselves the Intellectuals. Like, okay, for sure.
Though I will say, like, some of the I don't know if it's callousness or like when you are in a relationship, you can really become that bitch who like becomes really desensitized to like the single person's plight because you're in a relationship and you're like, you just have to do this. Like it's easy to do it. Like it's better for everyone. Like this is how you like get into a relationship. This is how you manage that. This is how you handle a breakup. Like it's so easy to say. And then like when you're out of a relationship, when you're single, it's like, okay, no, but I do understand why a person who is single,
all of a sudden,
why it's like you forget, like I was in this relationship, it was a 2-year-long relationship. So it's like you're so enmeshed in that. And so it's just like, you kind of forget a little, you don't forget, but you forget how like difficult it can feel in that moment, even though you may understand like how like practically easy it is, you know, but it still feels like difficult, like going no contact.
It's simple,
like,
but hard.
It's simple but hard. Exactly.
Yeah,
So,
very true. Very true.
yeah. So,
And I guess in the vein of like holding you accountable,
yeah.
does it like feel like you kind of have to like be like better because you said all this shit?
There's
now?
been so many times where I've talked to like my friends and I'm like, God damn it. Like, I feel like I've given the opposite advice on my pod, and I'm not doing like crazy heinous shit, you know, but like, you know, we didn't go no contact immediately. There was like a span of like a couple weeks where we were still in contact before it was a finally like, okay, let's just not talk at the moment. But yeah, there's definitely been moments in like just in general where I've just been like, I've literally have been such a proponent for the opposite of what I'm doing right now.
And here you are participating in the debauchery.
Yes,
that
but not entirely.
Singleness.
Not entirely. There are things that I have kind of held up. I've been more principled on, such as the dating apps, which I've not re-downloaded those at all. Granted, like I said, it's literally been... But people are different. It's only been like literally like 2 months and I have no desire to like jump back in. But like, you know, there are some people who do, who kind of, you know, just break up and for various reasons, depends on the relationship, depends on where you're at in life, etc. But even if I was in a place ready for dating, I will stand by our dating app episode of thinking that they are not good and resisting that urge and that impulse to just download and swipe and do all the things. So I have not done that.
Well,
and I'm very proud of myself for that.
Keep tabs on that and report back to you all if she maintains that that sentiment.
Yes, single Renee, she's here,
yeah,
and really relatively the same person.
Yeah, relatively the same. But I do think it'll be interesting to go back and see what you were saying. And then see as our episodes about this progress, like what you start to say now as a byproduct.
Oh, because there's also things, I'll be completely honest with you and the audience. There's definitely things that I did not say or did not elaborate on because I was in a relationship.
Right.
And not saying like about my relationship, but just out of respect of me being in a relationship.
Which honestly, those things might just be good
to never say.
Yeah, good to just not say on a podcast, low-key, like just straight up. But like,
well,
to that point, it is what it is.
Yes, but some things of even just like my like opinion about some things, I think.
I am nothing specifically.
There's nothing specific that pops up in my head either.
But you just know you did it.
But I feel like there were moments where I like held back some of my opinions of things because of that. But
which, you know, let this just be a sign that it's okay to adjust your existence in relation to your relationship.
Yeah, because it wasn't ever anything like absolutely horrible.
As long as you're not saying something completely opposed to who you are as a person,
yes,
I think you're fine.
Yes, I agree. I've never been not authentic to myself.
And as a person who's been witnessing all the eras of you, I can vouch for that. I can say the same. She's relatively the same, if not just a little more free.
Yes. It's just
uncaged bird, if you will.
Expansive is what I've been calling myself. I feel quite expansive post this breakup. Yeah.
You want to talk about challengers?
Ooh, yes.
That's why you wanted to bring up your singleness. Like that's really, you know, that's
oh
why.
Oh my God, yes.
Like, oh my God.
I would like to relive what happened in Challengers. So if there are any two hot men out there.
A platform for this. Stop.
Yeah, I don't have the dating apps, guys. I need something, so I will use this podcast as a way.
You know what's crazy? That's literally what dating apps are for.
Yeah.
Like if that's what you want, that's what you're looking for. That's literally what they're for.
No, it kind of has to happen to me, you know. I just want like two men to like just become obsessed with me, and then for me to watch them make out.
Oh, well, to that point. I was seeing some of those clips.
Yeah.
I was like, movie aside, being in a situation like that with Zendaya has to be crazy.
Yeah. No,
that has to be insane. Like, I would I would fold so quick.
Right?
You would be able to keep shooting that movie. I would need a break.
Yeah,
a year long break. Like, can't do it. That shit was crazy.
You know, I would give anything to be in that position with Cindy as well. You know, so.
Oh, you heard it here first, folks.
You know,
queer things, like I was saying
just
before. Queer things. Dude.
I'm not queer. I do want to say that. Not that there's anything wrong with being queer, but I don't want to misidentify.
48-hour period. That's like the second or third queer thing you said.
I've said. Well, yeah, because I'm what is it? What's the word? Oh my God. Sorry guys. I'm so spacey today.
What is the word?
Secure in my sexuality.
Fair enough. I'll give you
I know where my attraction lies with women. I've never been shy about my like I've had like 2 actual crushes, like an attraction towards a girl twice in my life. And that's been about it. And I've tried to explore that more, but then when I actually tried to date women,
you're just like,
it didn't actually, but there's just been like randomly these women in my life who have come across. I'm like, for some reason, you specifically,
you're doing it for me.
You're I become that light skin and you just Hey mamas, what's up?
Hey yo girl, let me get your number.
Yes, let me get your number.
No, I feel that. Which is to say a lot of interesting things about attraction.
Yeah.
Because while sexuality might be more rigid than people like to admit these days, attraction is way more fluid.
Yeah. Like just so like, yeah, I agree. And you would think like, yeah, I don't know. Because even those situations, it was like the 2 girls, I was like, literally don't understand at all why I am attracted to you as more than a friend when I'm literally in every day-to-day life am not that way with women at all. Yeah, it's like very odd how it like pops up. And it just is what it is. So I'm like, just this a little bit amount, but not enough to call myself queer or bi or like anything like that. Because at the end of the day, like I seek romantic relationships with men.
And I love that you can like identify that.
Yeah.
Like, so like pinpoint that so accurately, because the way that other people be talking about it stresses me out. Like I was telling you before, like that's just so annoying to me. It's like you're not that.
I mean, part of it happened to me during the pandemic. I was when I actually decided to try and explore dating women and seeing how that went. Really? Perfect time to do that. No, I told you. Don't you remember?
You know, you tell me so many things.
Yeah,
that doesn't sound like something you wouldn't tell me. So
I definitely told you
in there, but it never panned out to anything.
No, it didn't.
To like for me to like remember it, you know.
Because what ended up happening was I like matched with women on dating apps, talked to them. I don't think I ever actually went on any dates with them because I just was not. I was just like, I wanted to be friends with these people.
The urge was just not there.
I just was not like motivated at all to like actually date these people. Like I just wasn't like into it like that. And I was like, okay, so I guess these attractions that I've had have just been random.
Just little things. Just little things.
But unfortunately, I wish it blossomed into something because it meant be stressing me out.
And I guarantee you that's not solved with women.
No. Literally.
That just will not be solved.
Because I have my lesbian friends. And they tell me the shit that they go through in their day life. And it's just like, you know what? No one's winning. Yeah. No one's winning.
Humans
Everyone's
are stressful. That's just what it is.
That's just what it is.
Women be stressing me out too, girl.
Yes.
They be stressing me out too.
We're just all stressed.
Men are stressful and women be stressing you out.
Yeah.
So it just is what it is. It's just
all bunch of high cortisol levels all around. That's what's happening.
Yep. And here we are still seeking partnerships for whatever reason.
And that's what we're doing.
Yeah.
But yeah, who knows? Maybe this new singleness will provide some new perspective. I think it already has. There's a lot of stuff working in my brains. Obviously won't be talking about it now because it's in the works of my head. But
something's synthesizing.
Something is definitely synthesizing. There's definitely a lot of like, I'm pooling things. I've learned a lot from that relationship and kind of forming into how I'm like, it's all like already affecting kind of the outlook that I now have on life. And doing all that kind of stuff. So it's fun to see how it'll pan out. And who knows, maybe when I do start seriously dating again, I'll have fun stories to tell.
Fun stories to tell, more perspective to provide for y'all. Well, I'm doing all right too.
Yeah, how are you doing, Jem?
There's a lot of stuff going on in my life right now. So I feel like I'm pulled in several different directions, which isn't necessarily like atypical for me, but the things that are pulling me in the directions that they're pulling me are very significant, so I feel it more than usual.
Gotcha.
But for the most part, like I'm maintaining a very, very like solid frame and a good mindset.
Yeah.
I'm not like succumbing to anything. My emotions are very stable.
Right.
So
that's good.
It's nice to know that even though my life can be chaotic, I still have like maintain. I can maintain like this internal world really well.
Yeah.
And it's not like a avoidant thing. It's like, no, like I have the ability, I have the capability to meet every challenge that I'm facing right now.
Right.
And it's just a matter of doing it. And if I don't want to deal with it and I want to avoid all the stuff, will I stay in bed until 5 p.m.? Yes. And do I feel bad about that? No.
Yeah.
And I'm okay with that.
You should be proud of yourself for that.
Yeah.
Truly.
I
that's
know
a hard thing to do.
Like I am. I'm surprised. Because like with all this stuff, you would think that, and when my parents, like, because they know what's going on, like that, they're like, oh, like, just keep on, like, you'll get through, this is only like a time, blah, 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 this and the other. And like, of course you'll tell people that, right? With all these changes going on. Right. But also I'm like, I'm good.
Yeah. Like I'm actually handling it pretty well.
Yeah. Like this is just a thing that is happening, but I don't feel like devastated. Be like, oh my God, my life is so bad. Like this is so crazy.
Yeah. It's hectic. It's happening.
It's just something that's happening.
Yeah.
So.
Fuck yeah. Well, speaking of, because you're moving.
Oh yeah. I mean, might as well just say So I am moving.
Which, if you guys didn't already know, we're recording in Jim's apartment.
My apartment.
Yeah.
So we're going to be changing locations. Until further notice. I'm thinking about maybe like a month or two.
Yeah. Well, we'll be changing locations regardless, but we'll probably be changing locations a couple of times.
Yeah.
Before we have like a more permanent spot again.
Exactly. Which to that point, it should not affect y'all at all.
No, but you might see new scenery. That's all.
It might be cool.
Yes.
I've grown attached to this new set. We had 2 setups in this place. The original setup, which I really like, and the freaking this guy. Which,
like right when you got this, like right when you guys, Jem freaks out and really stresses about like the lighting and the setup and everything.
Aesthetics are so important to me, man.
Only just got down the lighting where he wanted it to be in this space, so it's hilarious that literally right after that he's like, well, I'm moving, so we're gonna have to do that all over again in a whole new space with a whole different windows,
all the different seating, different everything.
The way the light hits is different, all those sorts of things.
But I will say, because I'm not I was never, well, what do you call those things, light graphers, whatever, and I'm not that, but it's a compounding skill. Yeah. So once you master one space, you can apply these principles to all the spaces.
Makes it easier. Fair enough.
Hopefully it will not take me 6 months to
this long
lighting for the next place and the next place after that.
Yeah.
And hopefully one of these new places that we get to can be more permanent.
Can be more permanent.
But for now, like I said, the moving shall not affect the quality of the podcast.
Yes.
Because you still get our beautiful voices and our sound minds.
Yes.
Filtering information to your feeds.
Yes, indeed. Into your ears.
To your ear holes.
To your ear holes. To the little bones that clack and cliddle away.
But to that point, we can get into what we're talking about today.
Yes.
Which I think a good place to start is what you were delving into.
Oh, yeah.
A little history, a little biological component. Because, what do you think? Do you think, because everyone who has like issues with monogamy are always talking about how like it's unnatural.
Yes, it's not human
So
nature.
Is monogamy a natural endeavor?
Right.
Yes or no?
You're like, look, my girl,
we're doing the episode.
It's funny because as I was looking into it and doing because the research, a lot of the approach that I took to this question of like, or just like this statement of like the chokehold that monogamy has on us humans, like why does it have such a chokehold? A lot of the approach that I took to doing my research for this episode was like, okay, what's like the like history behind the like human behavior around this? So what are like the scientists and the researchers and the biologists saying about humans like proclivities to certain behaviors and whatnot? And I just became less like or more confused about what humans like are naturally do than it gave me like it. I definitely have more information now, but I feel a little bit stronger in the sense of like, I don't think it's an exact humans are naturally like free love, like are like free lovers, polygamists, etc., or they're naturally like monogamous, like hardcore stance this or that. Like I think it actually is like a bit more like
nuance, if you will.
Yeah, a little sprinkle of it.
Just
a little sprinkle of nuance.
Indeed.
So one of the things that was brought up, which I thought was really interesting, like kind of going down this path, is that, you know, we're a part of like the mammals. That's our distinction. Most mammals are not monogamous. They are under 10% of mammals are monogamous.
Do you know which ones?
The ones that I know that are monogamous, I know gibbons are monogamous. That was an example that was often used, and that is the only example that I know. I know that gorillas are one man, many women. So
that's usually how it is. Like the whole alpha male idea comes from like those type of animals, like gorillas, silverback.
There are
lions too, type shit.
Right. There is like one species, I forget what the name of it is, but there is one species of
bonobos, maybe,
that are polyandrous. Is it the one where there's a one woman, many males?
Like in the ape?
Yeah, there. I forgot. I should have written it down.
No, the chimpanzees have male shit. You're always talking about
chimpanzees. Well, there's also like mammals where it's like, there's like one for one, but it's like they just kind of refer them as like they're free love. They just engage in free love, where it's like, it's not necessarily like there's
a matriarchal type of situation.
Yeah, matriarchal or patriarchal type scenario. It's just kind of everyone kind of fucks. I think chimps are a part of like the free love scenario. I watched Chimp Empire on Netflix, and which is actually really interesting. Side note, very interesting.
While you were researching?
No, I watched it like a few months ago. It was so random watching it, but it was actually really, really cool to see like the culture and like the social, like
the mating
their little societies that these like chimpanzees
interesting
have.
How like those animals can have societies.
Literally,
like
they have like tribes. They have territory that they fight over. Like it is very, very interesting. And in that too, a lot of the female chimpanzees, they would have more than like one male partner. So, you know, there was like no like only like, you know, only mating with one man or anything like that. So, which could be the case, but neither here nor there. Something that biologists have labeled humans as, they have labeled us.
Those things.
Those. That we are socially monogamous, which means we typically live as couples, but the relationships don't last because sex can occur outside of those partnerships. So we typically engage in social monogamy, but sexual monogamy is not necessarily the norm. I don't know. I think like within that, there was kind of this whole like deep dive that I went into like of like why that is. One of those things being of just like speculation. There's none of these things are like in a like an exact science or an exact like a surety. They're all like theories about like why like humans engage in the behavior that they do, or like just like mammals in general.
I agree.
And so one factor that can potentially like impact the behavior of like a species, including ours, is the ratio of male to females in the population. And what they found is when males are the minority in a population, that more like, I guess, like polygamist or more free love like type behavior tends to happen. And
when males, you said?
When males are the minority, yeah. When there's a lot more women or a lot more females in the population than there are men, that's what like that behavior tends to happen. Versus, oh wait, there was like a specific thing with that though. Okay, no, that wasn't. Yeah. But yeah, so they're basically like we're more like it's shown in human behavior that we are less likely to engage in like long-term like invested like partnerships when our population is like at like that ratio is the case, which is like so honestly kind of makes sense. Like men are like, hey, I have all these options. I don't gotta hunker down for shit. And it's like that's such a man thing to do. I'm pissed. I'm like low key, like high key pissed off.
But then it goes into like mating strategy, just like this male female mating strategy.
Right.
When males have more options, then it's like, why should I have to freaking settle down? Versus like when women have when women can control that, the biological imperative or the social imperative, security matters more to women. So it's like, well, if I can control this, you're gonna have to commit to me,
right?
Versus like men's like, well, I have options, so why would I commit to you? So like,
fuck y'all. Y'all are just see. This is what I'm saying. Y'all make me mad.
Y'all make me mad. Y'all stress me out.
Stressing me the fuck out. Oh my God.
I feel it though.
Yeah.
Is that just patriarchal programming at its finest?
Maybe.
that's so hilarious. Like, God.
Oh my God.
Like, why can't we just like also just want like love and affection and commitment?
Why can't we do that? I don't know.
Because why would I have one bitch when I could have two?
Anyways, I cannot.
I agree. But that's social. Like when you said it's a social thing, socially monogamous.
Yeah.
It kind of just like puts out the biological thing completely.
Right.
Because like everyone's like, oh, humans are just like naturally not monogamous, blah, blah, blah. And I don't think that like matters as a just like if we're talking about infidelity and stuff like that.
Right.
It's like, oh, we're just like naturally we're naturally not meant to exist this way.
Right.
I was like, well, if that's the case, a lot of things that humans do should not be being done.
Right.
Like why are we creating freaking phones to contact each other across the entire, like no other animal does that. Right. What is natural? What is like, that's the conversation becomes so like, you know?
Yeah. There are like certain like behaviors that like, it's like isn't by like, I don't know what the word I'm trying to say, but like, isn't the fact that we see humans engaging in monogamous behavior evidence that we do have some monogamous tendencies?
Yeah, like we have the capacity for it.
Right. Like we like, because you see it in the animal kingdom, like, like animals and species who do not like have the capacity or need for any sort of monogamous like relationships or partnerships, pairings, will not engage in it. So clearly there's something in our evolution that we did start to engage in it for some reason. So it's not as if we are not like, it's not natural for us. It is natural for us. Otherwise we as humans would have never evolved to have done it.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Very true.
So it's like,
I agree.
That feels like stupid to me, but like I guess I can understand why. I can see the argument of the current argument being, why is monogamy still a thing that we hold so we have a chokehold on? Like it has a chokehold on us. I can understand exploring that conversation of why, as like an advanced species, do we still feel the need for this to engage in this sort of.
If it's an evolution, like if we evolve to be monogamous, why can't we evolve past monogamy?
Right. As like these intellectual, like, you know, the smartest
being on the planet.
Yeah. Like we're so above our animal instincts. Why can't we just, you know, not or
even
whatever.
if it's like not natural or not, like why can't we exist above it?
Right.
And to that point, I think it's important to call attention to like the purpose of monogamy. If it's social, this was serving a function. Like this, it evolved to exist a way because it was facilitating something.
Right. Right.
And what was it serving? Why did we need to be freaking monogamous? It was or maybe it not was, but it is financial stability, sharing resources, pooling resources together,
Right.
Emotional attention, which is paired with child rearing and stuff like that.
Right.
So it's easier to, with how long it takes humans to reach maturity,
Right.
it's so much easier to guarantee they're going to reach maturity if you have the hunter-gatherer, protector father that's protecting the offspring, and the mom nurturing and raising them into what they're supposed to be.
Totally.
Role clarity. It's very easy to divvy up responsibilities if there's only two people in that situation.
Totally.
And to that, I extrapolated it also to support. Like you have a good support system without having to like beg people to help you out. Like, there's almost an intrinsic guarantee that your spouse, that your partner is going to help you when you need it. And then just the general social acceptance. Yeah. Like most people are in monogamous situations. So most people are in monogamous situations. Yeah. That's just how that is.
Sure.
That's just how that is.
Definitely that for like, especially modern day, for sure. People engage in it because that's just what you do.
That's just what you do. And that habituated response to me is really the crux of the issue. Yeah. Because if it served what it served and we were informed how we were informed, and like I said, I do think it serves an actual function. Yeah. In the modern day, there's so many other avenues. The function, like the difference between men working and women not working. Like now we make similar amounts of money. Yeah. So financial stability, financial support, not as relevant. Totally. But we're still gripped by the chains of what we were doing like 6, 20, 40 years ago. Right. And to question it is to invalidate the structure completely, which makes it much more problematic than not. Because I think it's an interesting thing, right? Because the beauty of tradition is that you don't have to question things. And the problem of tradition is that you never question things.
I see. Yeah.
It's like, so now you, and this is something that you always see, and this is probably why a lot of 80% of these marriages end in.
That is so insane.
It is.
Yeah. It's really wild.
It's so crazy.
Yeah.
They end in infidelity because, like, to me, that signals like there's a problem in the discussion, right? So a lot of people will be in relationships, long-term committed relationships, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, and never once question or try to inquire about the needs that they, or the things that they need from the interaction, the things that they need from the commitment. Yeah. It's built into the system. It's built into the infrastructure. Yeah. You don't have to question what your role is as a husband in a traditional dynamic. You're like, I provide, I have a job, and you're my wife, and you cook and clean and do all that stuff, like in a very reductive sense. Right. And you just participate. You start playing the role. You start fulfilling the role that is required. Yeah. And now you're kind of like on autopilot until something happens that completely uproots the foundation of what you were doing. Totally. And now you don't know now your sense of self is completely shattered. Right. And you don't know what to do with yourself because you never actively thought about it while you were going into it.
Yes. Yeah. No, that is very, very true. That is very true.
And I was saying that because of that, it's almost like monogamy is like an achievement to unlock, like you were saying. Yeah.
it's like I literally said.
You literally said at the beginning of the podcast. It's like an achievement to unlock rather than like a frame to exist in, right? And it's one of the few things that we do socially that is like that. Yeah. Especially in interpersonal dynamics. Sure. Like friendship is not a goal.
Totally. Yeah.
Working is not a goal. Interacting like on a societal level, right? There's not goal oriented. It's like it's about the experience, about the journey. Monogamy is an achievement.
Yeah. Well, and like it's in those other things, like, yes, it's like, okay, yes, it is a goal. Like you have a goal for your career or whatnot, but you are still placing and you're still assessing yourself and your identity and what you want and like your et cetera, insert whatever into that framework of having a successful career. So
and it's like there's levels to it. The progression looks like something.
Yeah.
For monogamy, it's achieved once you find someone to commit to.
All right, now do it over and over again.
Every day. Every freaking day.
Yeah.
And it's like,
without like actually considering for yourself, like, okay, what are these? Yeah. What's the framework? What are the rules? And where do I see myself in that? How do I adjust that, or just like consider that for who I naturally am as a human, as a person, as an individual, and a person who engages in a relationship.
What does monogamy mean for me?
Yeah.
And
was being a part, just like starting, what does a partner mean to me?
Right.
Like what kind of partner am I naturally?
And what you get into relationships for at the beginning change over time.
Totally.
But the way that we conceptualize monogamy, it just is. And the only rule that we have for it is you can't fuck anyone else.
That's pretty much the hard rule, and that seems to be what everyone is doing. Because
right, the one thing it says not to do.
When you tell someone not to do something, and what makes someone want to do it more, maybe, I don't know.
And that was actually something, because like, I don't know if I mentioned this on our last episode, but most of my information about this is informed by Esther Perel's State of Affairs, which she goes into a deep dive about affairs and monogamy and just challenging these institutions.
Right.
That's what she was saying. It was like, it's not about nature versus nurture. What is natural is that there is a thrilling and exciting element, an erotic element to like subverting expectations.
Right.
So, and I was thinking about it in the sense of like, if you are like 8, staying out past curfew.
Oh yeah, the most exciting thing ever.
Sneaking out.
Oh yeah.
Super cool. Super exciting. Jumping a fence to a construction site, which is why I don't think you did that.
I don't know, if not.
But no. I used to do that all the time. Gated barred off area.
Yeah.
Let me just hop the fence and see
right.
If there's a boundary in place, it's human nature to want to trespass.
Right.
If you want to, and not to say that it's like because it's there you want to do it, but if you do it because it's there, it's more exciting.
Right.
There's like an exciting element to it.
1000%.
And it's almost because you make a rule, even if it's on a personal level, the moment that you the moment you take a stance on anything, the moment you call attention, like, you know what, this year I don't want to eat junk food. Why? The first thing that you crave after you say that is junk food.
Yep. There we go.
Like, damn, I'm in the mood for some McDonald's right now. You just said.
Yeah.
You just said. On like how I always say, like, it's so funny to me when girls are always like, you know, I'm so over boys. Like, I'm taking a break from men.
Yeah. Well, it's a literal like psychological thing that you're doing there. So you're calling attention to something, you're going to like put more focus onto it. That's why like also like in psychology, they always say like, don't ever say like, not ever, but when you're trying to like achieve some sort of goal, approaching it in positive terminology rather than negative. So instead of focusing on, I'm not going to do this, I can't do that, focus on, I will do this. I'm going to. Yeah. I will do this. I am going to achieve that. I'm going to start. So speaking in the positive rather in the negative, because what you're doing is like brain hacks. You're making sure you're focused on the positive, what you actually want to achieve, putting your brain into a mode where you're focusing on what you aren't going to have or trying to not achieve, is you're just putting more focus on it, right?
Because the human mind cannot perceive negative.
Yeah, exactly.
It just structurally is incapable of doing it. So, and I always say this to people, it's like it's an on button. It's not a brake pedal. It's a gas pedal. So the moment you focus on something, that's what you're going to focus on.
Exactly.
And if you try to focus on what not to do,
Yeah.
like they're always telling kids, like, don't tell kids what you don't want them to do, tell them what you want them to do. They're more likely to do it.
Right.
Because they're only focusing on what you're saying.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want you to touch the stove.
Right.
The stove.
Yeah.
The stove. The stove.
Mm-hmm.
That's all you're thinking about.
Yeah.
The freaking
Yeah.
stove. Like,
well, yeah. And now your focus is away from the thing that you're trying to actually achieve.
do. So
you
it's
know?
like, why don't you play with this dinosaur?
Yeah.
Now they're playing with the dinosaur.
Yeah.
Because
that's
just how your brain
place
is.
the focus.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So when the only disconnect from monogamy, the only disconnect from commitment is a sexual experience with another person.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing, or maybe not the only thing, but it's that situation is always going to be in the back of your mind.
Totally.
Because the presence of your partner
Yeah.
immediately implies the presence of other people.
Right.
And if you are not participating in what the commitment is expecting, the only other option that people have is to look elsewhere.
Right. Bada bing, bada boom.
Also, when you have only one element to which the entire institution falls apart,
Yeah.
it makes something that is so prevalent and so like important to the way that we interact with each other also incredibly fragile.
Yeah.
Like one little prick
Yep.
can just explode the thing. So it's like an elephant, a giant elephant in the, like, monogamy is the elephant in the room.
Right.
But that elephant is made of a balloon.
Right.
So one little thing can set it off to the point where I think, because of the tradition, I think because of how structured it has been for the entirety of a modern Western experience, to even call attention to the fact that there might be some flaws within it threatens to invalidate the entire premise that we're focusing on.
Yeah.
Because it's providing the function and we incorporate our romantic ideal into it.
Right.
But because our romantic ideal now is so complicated and there's so many more elements to it,
Right.
if we try to take that modern ideation of romance and shove it into our traditional unquestioned fabric of or framework of monogamy, it doesn't apply.
Yeah.
And we can't make it apply because we can't talk about monogamy without monogamy instantly falling apart, because the moment you talk about it, it's like you don't believe in monogamy.
Yeah.
Like,
No,
Jesus
yeah,
Christ.
it's very true. Like as we keep saying, like the grip that like we as a society have on like this style of a relationship is like we just are holding on to it for dear life. And it's almost as if like we as a society need to like practice like the law of detachment onto like monogamy as individuals. Like
I agree.
Because it's one of those things you hold on so tight to something. You want to have so much control over the thing that you're inevitably going to lose control of that very thing. And that seems to be like what is happening.
We also think that like monogamy is the correct way.
Right. Like it's the default way of
it's the way we have
interacting.
been doing it, but there's no flexibility to it.
Right.
Because everything else is wrong.
Right. Yeah.
And that might be because the religious legacy that monogamy comes from.
Right. Right.
And
also too, like the religious legacy of like that monogamy comes from, and like the like Christianity being, you know, the proponent of that, but also the gosh, and I don't know how much I will preface that. I don't know how much of me saying this it's probably incredibly informed by like my American Western like viewpoint and perspective. So I want to say this like sort of carefully because I don't actually mean this entirely, but our negative association with other kinds of like ways of engaging in partnership, and how there's been such a negative like so many like negative examples being put out there. So like with like polygamy, like you see in like the Mormon faith, how that has always been a really common practice. But also what's deeply entrenched in Mormonism in that practice has been a huge neglect of women's rights, also pedophilia. It's been used as an excuse for all these other things to happen. And so you see in like these other faiths where, you know, other styles, so like even and like the Islamic faith, how, you know, they allow for, you know, one to have many wives, and like, but then there's also just such a negative association with many wives. There's like the immediate association that we as a society have with that is like women's oppression.
And you know, that's so interesting that you drew that connection, because I've never thought of it like that.
Yeah.
But every time you do see, except for in Africa, every time you do see multiple wives, you see a type of oppressive patriarchy that objectifies women and reduces their ability for autonomy, which is so funny. Yeah. That, like we were saying before, I was like, if men are like this and women like structure and support, then our society, who is more, well, patriarchal, gives a little bit more value on a systemic level to the autonomy of women. It's funny how that becomes more monogamous.
Yeah. Yeah, no, yeah, definitely. Right. And the reason why I brought up the preface is because I do not think that like Mormonism, I might openly really judge the fuck out of y'all, not gonna lie. But I don't want what I'm saying about the Islamic faith to be like misconstrued as me saying that they are like inherently, like that faith is inherently like inherently misogynistic or inherently any this, that, and the other. I actually did study the Quran for a little bit while I was living in Morocco. And it's really unfortunate to see how men in power actually kind of corrupted that sentiment of having many wives into something that was what it is, what we tend to see.
And that's kind of how,
so it's not like the judgment of the faith, but of how we as humans have.
Which is something you can say about damn near every religion.
Yeah, don't get me started on Christianity. Y'all
it's literally the same. Yeah. And it's really hard to argue with divine credence. Like, totally. If you claim that this is coming and you're associating with the words of God. Right. No one can argue with your behavior. Exactly. You have complete.
You're positioning yourself in a place where no one can touch you.
No one can judge you.
Yeah.
You're going to argue with God? No.
Yeah.
I'm not going to try. I cannot do that. Oh, that's crazy. And truly, I do think that I'm like, again, very like triggered in a good way about this association to Westernism and like the correctness of monogamy. Yeah. Like the Western world's proclivity to colonialism and in projecting our value system to the world. So anything that's different, anything that might be working somewhere else is like, well, you're doing it wrong because this is what we were doing and because we got this from the Bible. Right. So interesting. Yeah. A take that I wasn't aware of.
A take that I also, up until literally just now, did not think about.
Yeah, that's kind of crazy.
Yeah, funny how conversations.
That's kind of crazy.
Yeah.
And as we elaborate on this, even more so with that angle, you see that there's a lot of elements encapsulated in this structure. Yeah. And to the point where you can't necessarily address anything about monogamy on an individual level without feeling the weight and being buried by all these other things that come with it. Yeah. So it might actually be easier just to not have to think about it. And because of that, you don't have that conversation. And that's just how that goes. But it's like not an easy conversation to have, but not having it while in the midst of this like humanness of multiple desires for people. Yeah. Like your desire for people doesn't stop the moment you commit to someone. Right. But then because of the structure, you can't talk about it because it invalidates the structure. You are you're actually facilitating the very thing that like breaks it apart. Yeah. And it's too suffocating. It's too suffocating to make the fact that it facilitates infidelity in that way any other option.
Yeah. Well, okay, I will say this. I do wonder, like, not to like completely be like this whole conversation is like invalid. But I do wonder too, to some degree, like how much of even this of like, how much are we putting the value of, okay, well, most people who get divorced, it's because of infidelity. Like we're assigning more value to that like behavior than maybe it's also just a part of like the natural way of things. I say this because I actually just remembered and when I was doing like the research with it, there was, so obviously I kind of went down the rabbit hole of like these different other mammal species who a very small amount of them engage in monogamy. And one of them being, I think, voles. So and there's two different types of voles though. One type of vole, and they look at identical, but they're technically like different subspecies. One does engage in monogamy and the other does not.
There's a Rick and Morty episode about this.
Really? Wait, that's funny. Which I guess this part is like kind of like the different type of voles one does and one doesn't, not at least in this scenario, it doesn't really matter. But when they were looking at the voles who did engage in monogamy, they found that even then, these animals who on just like a basic like instinct level, because they're obviously not experiencing partnership and love in the same way that we are, they are still even engaging in infidelity. So they found that these, some of these voles, they would like check like the DNA of like the babies, and that there was like a 20%, or there was just like a percentage of vole babies that would not be the like the father was not like the partner that vole was like in a relationship, for like lack of better words. But so even this like very monogamous species that engages in monogamy, that's like how they run their shit, there was still evidence of infidelity. The females would still have a side piece, you know.
But it's so interesting to,
and
like,
they don't have like they don't have like the weight of our like the structure of framework of like monogamy and like the way the rule, like they're just like voles, like, you know what I mean?
Voles.
Right.
It's true. And that's exactly what I was gonna say. It's like, you can't reduce it to that. But also they don't have that structure. So to apply our structure to it, to a species that could never understand it, seems a little impractical, which then you have to question, like, how practical is our implementation of said structure? And
that's what I'm trying to get at, is like how much significance do we give to, like, well, we are these complex intellectual like species now. We are beyond our evolution, beyond our biology, and how like, and I think it's always kind of these sorts of conversations, what it always comes down to is like how much of it is like we are an advanced species, so we can we're operating now kind of above our instinctual behavior, and how much is it we're still influenced by that instinctual behavior.
How much does that instinct inform our cognitive decisions?
So is like the infidelity a product of us being this advanced species who's kind of allowing for the weight of these frameworks and these rules to kind of overtake, and you see individual smart humans kind of engaging and acting out because of that? Or is it still just kind of a part of this animalistic instinct that we engage in that really has like it does not need all of this like intellectual critique and like analysis? It's probably somewhere in the middle. I think
the path that it follows is not as binary.
Totally.
So it might just be an innate natural thing, an innate natural biology. But because we can conceptualize these ideas, the motivations for why we do it now has a different
complex
meaning.
Yeah. That's good response. Yeah. There we go.
This is interesting. I like this conversation, man. This is interesting. Yeah, no, it's like the pressures of this structure, the lack of attention, the expectations, the promises, our ideations of love, all that stuff,
right,
might make us feel that way. And our only way to express this complex feeling is to go out of the commitment.
Totally.
The similarity is the motivation to cheat,
right?
But the meaning behind it, or like what motivated us to do that.
Yeah, the motivation.
Like a vole, I think the vole just kind of did it because it did it.
Yeah.
Like, who knows why a vole really
right, like into the mind of a vole. Our motivations are much more complex than a vole.
Even though the behavior might be the same.
Yeah, the end result same.
Yeah, no, that's again very interesting to think about.
Yeah.
Very, very interesting to think about. And I don't know if this necessarily relates, but in that complexity, monogamy also has such a duality, which in most things, and this is what I'm finding, the more we have these type of conversations, the human experience and human interaction in and of itself is intrinsically contradictory. And you find that especially in romance because of how, like, what we want now in modern days, and then how what we want now in modern days is informed by that tradition. So our modern expectations are informed by tradition, but the tradition and the modern expectations don't align.
Totally.
But what you need as an individual also doesn't necessarily align itself with being in a relationship. So it's like you have the duality we were talking about before. It's like, so you need security and you need like adventurous, you need independence and dependence, you need stability and novelty, you need devotion, but you don't want it to be obligatory.
Right.
And there's all these things that are just naturally working when you say, I commit to somebody. Negotiating through these factors, like how much am I going to be independent? How much am I going to do all this stuff? How much am I going to, like, how much does novelty matter to me? How much can I be okay with the status quo?
Right.
All those things are what you agree to in monogamy. And when you have all that stuff to think about and you pair it with how hard it is just to exist with all the other ways that humans exist in life, you can very easily see that you can fall into this rut and then become restrained in talking about these things. And you want to like derive meaning from your relationship. And to then come to your partner and be like, this is not fulfilling a need that I want without disrupting the entire like premise of the commitment.
Right.
Because the very sad thing, and this is, I think this is like my issue with monogamy. If I could filter down to one thing, you need your partner to be so many things for you.
Yeah.
And naturally your partner can't be all these things for you.
Totally. Right.
But to try to get your partner to do these things for you disrupts the very idea of, it disrupts the reasons why you even got with that person to begin with, if that makes sense.
Like the idea of like, I want you to get me flowers, but I don't want to ask you to get me flowers. I want you to just do it.
Exactly. And if I have to ask, it invalidates
the thing.
It invalidates the gesture.
Yeah.
And you can't talk about it without it like challenging the very nature of the romantic ideal. So how can I get what I need from this if we can't even discuss the fact that I'm not getting what I need from this?
Yeah. Because I guess because you kind of did before kind of do like a vast like list of like all the contradictions that exist like in a relationship. So I guess I see what you're saying of like, so say maybe like in like the sexual space.
Okay.
You're with your partner for like a long time and you right. Like what's like demanded out of like the erotic space in like a relationship. Like you need like the novelty, you need some excitement, you need like et cetera, which is why a lot of people look outside the relationship. They get bored with the sex life with their partner, or why else do people cheat? I mean, I guess maybe like a very like surface level basic reason why someone may cheat. Like they get bored with their partner. Like it's just they do the same old thing, they have the same old routine, like they're not having enough of it, et cetera, et cetera. And so to approach your partner and to be like, I need something to shift in our like dynamic in the sexual space, but what you need is a sense of like novelty, or like, yeah, say it's like you need like a sense of novelty or like newness that can be like kind of contradictory to like, okay, well, I've been your partner for 10 years. Like there's only so much like, I guess, novelty that I can give you.
Right.
But
and to that point too, because I guess the hesitation that I have, I haven't been in a 5, 10, 15-year marriage, right?
Right.
Which
same.
is like kind of, when you think of monogamy, that's like the image that comes to mind. So everything that I'm saying is definitely referential.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, well, I think when I try to like conceptualize, I'm just thinking of my own experience. It's like, well, that just doesn't apply. But like, I'm not talking about that right now.
Yeah.
And as far as like the example that you were using, it's not necessarily an unwillingness to participate, but like when you have a kid and maybe you have been having novelty and you have been doing all these things, but your priorities have to shift. And your things have to be a little more focused.
Yeah.
And your role has to change. Now you guys are not newlyweds anymore. You are parents.
Yeah, and what's required to be a good parent, to like be a good family is like for lack of better words, is contradictory sometimes to what it means to be a good like partner, to be
and you might not just like at the end of the day taking care of a brand new baby, you just might not have what is required.
You may not have the time or the space. Like you have like your priorities have to shift. So what you have to do to be a good parent, to be a good husband and wife in the sense of like being a part of this family unit versus being a good partner as like the partner for life, your homie, your
the homie though.
Your sexual partner,
Right.
your homie, can be two different things. And often, maybe not often, I don't know, but can often feel as if they're
competing.
Yeah, exactly.
To the point where how can you tell the wife and wonderful mother that you need more from her in this avenue,
right,
without completely invalidating her efforts
as
of being a wife and mother? Yeah. And the reason why I think that's as common as a cliche as we can create right now is because we're not talking about how monogamy evolves over time.
Yeah, no, exactly. It definitely shifts and changes how monogamy looks when you're like dating, like, 3 years, like, oh yeah, we're dating, to like being newlyweds and being married, to then being parents and having a family. Those are very different. Like, it's not like, it is monogamy, but it's different.
Yeah.
Things change, things
It's a
shift.
stage. There's stages. And if monogamy is complete when you get together and we have all these expectations, contradictory expectations of what we expect from our monogamous partner.
Yeah.
And when to address one aspect, because there are multiple aspects, to address one aspect is to invalidate another.
Totally.
Then we fall into this like relative trap of being incapable of communicating these things. And not to say that people don't eventually get there,
Totally.
right?
Yeah.
But I'm talking about like the initial resistance to getting there is that structure.
Yeah.
Because it's fragile. It's very hard to like sift through without completely being like, well, it's like, well, I'm not this, then does that mean I'm just like not anything? Like you're supposed to love me and all the, like, you can just go down the list of all the stuff that happens when you try to challenge it. When if you just had a more realistic expectation rather than this Disney primed programming that we have about the happily ever after. And like that's that little Cinderella thing, because Cinderella's always the reference that I have for happily ever after for whatever reason. And them just running off into the sunset, that's monogamy.
Yeah. That's it. All right, we're done.
Now what?
There's a whole lot.
There's a whole lot, and no one knows. No one ever freaking talks about it. It's like going through a minefield. How do you talk about the fact that you don't feel connected without invalidating the connection?
Yeah.
It's easy for you to talk about this with extra people, but to the person that is supposed to be your everything,
right?
To the person that monogamy has guaranteed you to have this type of interaction with, the ambitiousness, I will say, of monogamy.
Yeah.
How do you address when it's so sensitive? How do you address these needs to the person that's the cause of the deficit?
Right.
If you don't prime the interaction to be that way from the beginning, which most people don't.
Yeah.
At least my family, the older people in my family definitely did not.
Yeah. I wonder if like a part of it, and this is, I haven't read too much of Esther Perel, but she'll probably completely disagree with me on this. I'm not, it's not like an actual belief that I'm having, just something that I'm thinking about as like you're talking about this. Cause even like then thinking about like my own fears about getting into like a marriage and like, so like my very specific fear that I have is that I will be with someone, we get married, we have kids, and I will not be able to like meet up to the expectations, the sexual expectations that my partner may have, that I'll like fall short as like the erotic partner who can engage in that intimate space in the same way. And granted, probably I'm assuming what a lot of people who are married and have children and have had children for a while and kind of been able to figure that out, is that they've maybe had to engage in the space or approach it a little bit of a different way, and that's kind of the solution. But I wonder like if like a part of the reason why infidelity is such an issue is because this is going to sound contradictory. No, actually it's not. It's the law of detachment here that I'm practicing by putting so much like monogamy, as we kind of almost establish, is like the end all be all to it at the end of the day. Yeah, we have like other rules involved in it, but essentially it's like don't fuck other people. You are you only fuck this person for the rest of your life. The most like, aggressive way to put it.
Right.
And so there's so much focus on sex and sexual, that being your only sexual partner and your sex life. And you see it all the time. Well, how often are you and your partner having sex? People have a lot of insecurity about like, well, they don't really want to say like, because I don't know, like what you think is like enough sex, what I think is enough sex. Like there's so much focus around that. Like, oh, after having a baby, how much sex are you having? Like all these sorts of things. Like there's so much focus on it. And maybe that's essentially what you're saying here. Or maybe it's not. I don't know.
Yeah, pretty in line with what I'm talking about.
Of like, how much focus do we really need to like be putting on sex in monogamy, like in our relationship? This being like, okay, you get married and then you start having children and your relationship shifts, and maybe like the like fear and focus on, well, what is our sex life going to look like? Maybe that thought and that line of thinking does not necessarily need to happen, or maybe we should try and move away from that. Maybe it's just that in this time period, when you're like maybe having a newborn or whatever, you lean into the other aspects of partnership that can be just as fulfilling. And by detaching yourself from whatever outcome or expectation you have around sex, that then breeds a more fulfilling sex life and maybe just a more fulfilling all around partnership, because then you are not, as we have just said, instead of focusing on the negative, we are not having sex, but what else are we having in this? We have a new baby, we have a new child, we're entering into this new phase as parents, and what else am I getting from my partner that's new and exciting and really cool? And decentering sex almost as a way to allow for it to really flourish, because then maybe that's why infidelity is happening, right? The person their psyche is focusing on, I'm not having sex. I'm not having sex. I'm not having as much sex I'm having. I'm not having the type of sex I'm having. Well, she's a wife and mother and she's just focusing on my kid all the time and I'm not getting enough attention. And like, because I'm not having enough sex.
A very interesting regression, but
yeah.
go on.
Well, that's like just like a very
why isn't my wife neglecting my child?
Yeah. Well, no, but it's a thing that fathers often feel, right? There can become if you allow it, an unfortunate dynamic that can occur when people start having children is the man in the dynamic, the father and husband can start feeling as if he's competing for that child's, for the wife's affection with the child. Like they're in competition with the children.
Baby. She loves me more.
She loves me more. Exactly. Really, it shouldn't be, but it's understandable. It's human to kind of go down that route. So,
which is funny that you can understand that, but you can't understand how a friend might feel the same when the attention of their friend shifts to another thing. Oh, it's literally the same idea if you think about it.
No, don't think about me like that. No,
don't bring that up again.
You're a friend. Okay. No.
Hey yo.
No, I'm just kidding, sort of. But yeah, so
but that's so true.
Yeah.
And when you center sex in that way, combined with the very limited sexual variance and in the definition of sex that we have.
Yes.
Like that is not a good combination.
No,
at all.
You're
centering something
up.
that you barely have an idea on.
Yeah.
So if sex can only exist in one way and only looks like one thing, centering it in a structure that evolves over time that you do not discuss.
Yeah. Yep. You're just setting yourself up for
that is so crazy.
Yeah.
That is so crazy. And I actually at the end of this I also put that. I was like, I think it's kind of reductive.
Yeah.
To define devotion as sexual exclusivity, which is not necessarily me putting my hat into the ring of polyamory. We can talk about polyamory.
I mean, I think after this little infidelity series, we'll have to.
Yeah, because I'm not necessarily opposed.
Yeah.
But
we're edging it a little bit.
Stop. Oh my God.
Why
are you doing this to me?
But aren't we?
Oh my God. Just like edging. The word edging in my life has just been such a... I'm kind of like triggered. But
oh my gosh.
If like even that, polyamory doesn't negate the potential for jealousy.
Yeah,
the
it
trust
doesn't
issues.
Solve that. Yeah.
And infidelity is just one type of non-monogamy. It's one type of breaking of the structure.
Yeah.
There's so many other ways to define betrayal. There's so many other ways to have your heart broken. There's so many other ways to have your trust broken.
And infidelity can still happen in polyamorous relationships. So we're really not like... That's not like just polyamory. Boom, solved it. Yeah, it's
just
not
fuck
that
more
simple.
people. Like, no, because that doesn't touch on the other aspects of loyalty and monogamy that I think should hold more importance. So like respect, right?
Yeah,
just casual.
Okay,
just respect, the trust. It doesn't touch on the the emotional intimacy.
Yeah.
You can be completely monogamous and think you achieved something, a good connection with a person who has neglected you for the last 20 years.
Damn, that part.
But everyone looking at that relationship like, y'all never cheated on each other. But that's a betrayal of the expectation of what it means to be connected to another person.
Right.
And
that reminds me of sorry, am I interrupting your thought?
No, you're good.
Okay. That reminds me of Love is Blind, Clay's parents, how he kept on saying in when they were I don't know, when him and AD were having discussions about being in a relationship and he was all worried about cheating on her and my parents cheated, blah, blah, blah. But then the same breath talking about how, we had a successful and granted, actual infidelity did occur in this case, but it was just a as like an example of like the ways that we see like monogamy. It's like, well, they had a successful 20 plus year long marriage. Like that's a success. I was like, is it a success though? Like there was infidelity happening throughout a majority of that relationship. It sounds like, and like, what seems like some other form of like neglect that the husband was, neglecting Clay's mom and where the emotional needs, et cetera, et cetera. So it's like, yeah, sure. They were in this like relationship in 20 plus years, say like the infidelity never occurred, but like she was still being neglected. And is that
the achievement?
Right.
Is that what
we're together for 20 years, so it all works out in the end. You know? Yeah.
At what cost?
Yeah.
And then for the people who are in like domestic violence stuff.
Yeah.
It's like I was saying in the last episode, beating someone is so much worse than cheating on them.
Yeah.
But not in the conversation.
Right.
Not in the discussion of it.
Right.
Because you're like, you'll reframe that. It's like, wow, she's so committed. She loved him so much that she, you know, like
totally
the whole thing that comes with that.
And even the like just like all like the different like you know, what's the word? Oh my God, today. What we see like these relationships that we idolize in like media that are not real, like of characters and whatnot. Like people, there's a lot of discussion happening right now about The Notebook and how some people are like, I actually didn't really like The Notebook because like she cheated on a man who's like actually like a good guy, and then went for like this other dude. It's like these relationships that we idolize, but like when we really analyze them, like it's like there's like toxic behaviors like within those. But
especially The Notebook. The Notebook is like the best example.
Yeah, exactly.
I was telling you about that. I remember when I brought it up. I was like, that's kind of crazy. If you think about it.
100%.
Like,
but we all obsess over it.
That's the love I want.
Right. As like the pinnacle. Yeah.
What?
Like, I guess. Okay. Yeah. No. So yeah, it goes to like, do we know what we want truly from like a monogamous relationship? If these are the sorts of relationships that we tend to idolize in our discussions of like what we prioritize, I guess the question is like, is at least that I'm having, and maybe this is what the question that you were trying to get to at some point, is like, is infidelity like the thing that we should be like most concerned about when kind of thinking about like a monogamous relationship?
And would monogamy be better? Would monogamy would monogamy serve us better if we, like you were saying, decentered sex from the conversation? Like, if we define fidelity through other things, would exploring a sexual thing in a more sexually modern culture, would that be as devastating as it is?
Right.
And to that point, why? Because what monogamy used to mean 50 years ago and what monogamy means now is different.
Yeah.
One for life, one at a time.
Yeah.
Easy distinction.
Yeah.
If it can evolve from that to this, why can't it evolve beyond this?
Yeah.
And is that just a projection because we are in this and we haven't been able to see how it evolves?
Totally.
Maybe.
Right. Yeah, that could be it.
It seems very stagnant in the way that people think about this and have these type of conversations. Right. Because it's just a no-brainer. Yeah. It's just a no-brainer. If you cheat, you're done. Yeah. You're not monogamous. Yeah. You're the worst human being that could ever exist on the planet. Yes. You've invalidated everything I stand for. Yeah. Therefore, you're dead to me. Yes. And you could have every other thing in a relationship working, complete and utter compatibility. Yeah. But because why do we put so much emphasis on genitalia and where genitalia is being placed? Assuming it's done in like a safe manner and nothing, no negative consequences from it in your life isn't like, if you never knew that this happened, you think this is the perfect relationship. Yeah. Should then now sexual exclusivity or non-exclusivity inform how you feel about the entire relationship.
Yeah. Well, I mean, with that, it's like, to a degree, it's understandable because you are right. As we talked about, there's rules of monogamy. So there are rules that have now been broken. And therefore, like when two people agree, this is what we're going to do, and one person doesn't do that, trust is being broken, loyalty may be being broken. There's like betrayal, etc. So it's like, it's understandable, but I kind of going back to that point, I do agree though. It's like we place so much significance on it that we end up shooting ourselves in the foot with it. Because then, if we're placing so much significance on it, of course, then feeling all of the pressure in a space, in the erotic space, which there should really be no pressure applied.
By
it's
the nature
like
of the
space.
premise.
Yeah. Of course, then we're going to go out and cheat. We're going to look elsewhere because now what we're associating with our partner and sex is pressure and expectation,
pressure and
rules and a role that you have to perform, and et cetera, et cetera. And so it's like, how do we, which I get that it's hard to figure out because by nature of a relationship, there's rules and expectations and roles that you have to perform. So
but
we're
all
naturally,
those other things are up for discussion.
Yeah.
Except for
sex.
Yeah. Except for that sexual exclusivity.
Yeah.
So it's like, again, I don't think polyamory is a useful progression, Renee.
You shall be polyamorous.
It's like,
I just,
because even like assuming that you do it ethical non-monogamy.
Yeah.
It comes with its own set of feelings and emotions that most people cannot process.
Yeah.
Just straight up. Just all the people that I know and I've met in my life to this point, 99% of them.
So it's a lot to deal with.
Could
for
not
sure.
process. They can't even process
the one
multiple dating.
Yeah.
Before exclusivity.
Right. Sure.
How are you gonna handle an open relationship, ma'am?
Yeah.
Sir? You're not.
Yeah. I do wonder. It's like if you have a hard time managing the emotions, the feelings, just like your energy and focus being pulled in many directions from just dating multiple people, then engaging in like being with multiple people, just not, and just like the sense of like being like committed to multiple people, right? That would be hard to translate for sure. If you can't do that,
you can. Most
you're
people
stressed out by dating multiple people.
You're
maybe
not going to be able to get into multiple relationships with these people.
Yeah.
It's just not a thing. And there has to be a way to be able to have this discussion. Because like, let's say back to the parent example, like once you progress to parentage and you still have these urges that can't be satisfied, since we're talking about like the sexual part. If you both agree on it, is it not a subversion of, or is it really a subversion of the commitment that you made to each other if you're outsourcing the help that it takes to satisfy your partner's needs?
Kind of like, should we see it? I'm laughing at this because it kind of sounds funny to me, but should we see it almost similarly as we see like telling your partner they should go get therapy, right? Like you can't provide like all of the emotional support that your partner may need in maybe tough times or whatever. So they have to outsource some of that emotional and mental support to a therapist.
Or another example, is it more akin to like a nanny? Right? You can't do all the childcare. You have to work.
Yeah.
You get support for that.
Yeah.
And we pick and choose what part of our relationship gets community involvement.
Right.
But when it comes to genitalia, like, those are mine. Those are mine. Like, no, you cannot.
No community involvement.
Yeah, this is not a communal pussy. Okay, like, what do you mean?
We should incorporate communal pussy into society.
Hey, yo, we have that, Renee. Actually, we have that, and no one likes it. We don't like it. Okay.
No, they like it. They like the communal pussy.
They're so
it's there for a reason. If there's a need, it's being met.
Oh God. Oh God.
Wait, I kind of love where this went.
God.
That's hilarious.
Oh
Because
God.
it's funny because I'm kind of being serious, like as like a serious, not like a serious, not the communal pussy,
Right.
but like this thought of like seeing, like having such a possessiveness over, right, the sex and erotic space and satisfaction and pleasure that your partner experiences. Only I am allowed to give that to my partner. And maybe like the end result for you specifically, the general you, is that you and your partner only get that from one another. But I think there is like a benefit in exploring like in this way of like we seek support, outsource support often as like a family, as like a individual, as a person for different needs that we need. And like, why can't sex also be
one of those needs? I agree, without it being so problematic, which I think that has more to do with sex than monogamy.
Yeah, probably. You know, you're probably right on that one.
You do have to think about it. You do have to think. Oh, you don't have to think about it, but I'm thinking about it.
Yeah, no, but I think it is like, I think it's like, I don't know. I think it's important, or like always a good like thought experiment to kind of think about the most, either you can go extreme or the most unusual or the most like outside of what you would normally do. Think outside of the box of like how to like, I guess, solve a solution or solve a problem.
Like break the foundation at its core and then recreate it in a meaningful way for the two of you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That is a useful thing to do.
I think a lot of partner or people should do that in their relationships. Like I think even kind of at the beginning, what we were saying, and we'll reiterate here, is that like monogamy, like there is a set of rules and a framework that we are literally handed to, and then it's shoved down our throat over and over and over again, constantly throughout our lives. And I think it's important that you as an individual person kind of take the time to assess what that means for yourself. Like, okay, this is what that framework is. This is what the rules are the playbook that has been given to me by society. What is like my natural like inclination in this space? How do I tend to engage as a partner? What do my natural needs tend to be? And it's going to be different for different people. We're all individual humans, right? And how then do you kind of marry those two ideas into something? If monogamy is ultimately the sort of relationship that you want, how do I marry those two ideas? What is my individual wants, needs, expectations of life in a partner, and what is like kind of the framework that is given. And a part of doing that is kind of completely breaking down that whole framework entirely and rebuilding it from the ground up. Because you'll maybe still get back to monogamy, but now it's customized.
Exactly. Very good word. And also that can be done at multiple stages of the relationship. So that if something is not working, you have little checkpoints to readjust and recustomize it for the point of life that you're in at that moment. Right. And it's interesting that like no one wants to outsource sex because most people are really bad at it. Most heterosexual couples report the lowest amount of sexual satisfaction. And most of these people are in the monogamous relationship.
Right. It's like, well, you have a go-to? What do you mean you're sexually dissatisfied?
Right.
Well, there's a lot of reasons.
Oh, man, we can get into it.
Yeah.
That'll be in our sex episode.
Yeah.
We'll get to that.
Yeah.
But yeah, outsource. Or I'll do it for us.
Oh my goodness.
This is for the relationship.
This is for us, sweetie. I promise.
I promise.
Oh gosh.
But yeah, that's
any other
like to bring it.
Yeah.
I'm lacking the ability to do that today. Which
and you're the one that always does it.
Yeah, that says a lot about everything.
Even when at my sharpest am not very good at bringing things together.
Ooh, man,
in the way that you do. So this will be fun. Go ahead. How do we summarize what we just said? Communal pussy, everyone.
God. See, this is why you don't. This is why you don't summarize shit.
This is why I don't do it. To summarize what we said to the audience.
Communal pussy is the solution.
Communal pussy, outsource sex and infidelity isn't the thing because it's communal. Just completely eradicate infidelity by just making it all communal.
Are you quite done? Are you quite done? You said
They'll agree
your
with
piece.
me.
Right.
They'll agree with
This
me.
is not going to the podcast. Shut the fuck up.
Please put it in there.
Oh my God. We'll see. We'll see how I'm feeling that night.
Yeah.
But in actuality, to summarize,
Yes.
I think your last point is actually a good way to encapsulate everything that we're talking about. Because we weren't unfocused, but we definitely addressed a lot of things that had to do with the structure.
Yeah.
And the main point that we were trying to make is that there's a issue with the way that heterosexual people engage in monogamy. Because this is literally only not literally only, but it's much more common to observe in heterosexual relationships than it is in homosexual relationships. And the reason why, and this is why I think that we can learn a lot from same-sex couples, is because it is immediately subversive. And it has to be negotiated and it has to be discussed.
Totally.
It's already untraditional.
Right.
Your roles have to be specified. What this interaction is has to be articulated.
Right.
What you need is already it's like it's a feature of the dynamic rather than
same-sex relationship.
Rather than just an implicit understanding of what your parents and their parents and their parents have been doing for the last 400 years.
Right.
And the discussion is what's important, and understanding that with every other thing that you need in a relationship, commitment being a need that you need in a human interaction, in a committed relationship, commitment can be negotiated. Commitment is open for discussion, not to be invalidated, but definitely to be elaborated upon. Because if you go into it with a preconceived notion of how things are supposed to go, you'll end up fulfilling the pattern of behavior that we see happening in so many of our couples, like the epidemic of singleness and the loneliness of our society is just so prevalent now. And I think it's because we just have not found a way to discuss these very implicit preconceived notions that we have about commitment and trust and monogamy and loyalty and relationships. And rather than try to participate and struggle through the machine and figure it out, it becomes a lot easier just to opt out. Because we have so many other things to deal with.
Right. And like this in of itself is so overwhelming and complex and there's so many variables at play. And it's just, it's like, easier to opt out.
Why would we then have to struggle through this too? Like relationships and romance is not supposed to be this stressful.
Right.
So breaking it at its seams, having the thought exercise, and this episode was 100% a thought exercise for us, trying to articulate these very complex ideas, and to break it apart and come together and create something that's tailor-made for you and your relationship, I think is probably the most beneficial thing that you can do as a modern couple.
Yeah, I 1000% agree with that. 1000%. I 1000% agree with that.
We got there.
I was like, I feel like I slurred.
I agree with it. Sober as hell.
All right.
Oh my God. So how do you feel about monogamy? And would you be open to exploring what it means to you? Not exploring the boundaries of it, but just exploring what those boundaries mean with your partner. I'm very curious.
Yes. Yeah. That is a very
That'd
good
be really
question.
interesting to know.
Is this a conversation that you have had with your partner?
Or do you just take monogamy for granted and center sex around all your relationships?
Right.
We both agree that's not something you should do.
If you listen to any part of this episode,
don't do that. Don't do
that. Don't do that. No, exactly.
God, don't do that.
And if you want to answer that question, you should leave a comment on one of our YouTube videos. And even more importantly, you should maybe subscribe to our YouTube channel. That would be really cool. We would really love that because we love you guys, and that's why we make all this content. We also just love hearing ourselves talk.
Yeah, that's honesty is key, right?
Privacy
we
is
do
key.
this for us first.
Yeah, we do this for us first. We find this shit interesting, and then we hope you guys find it really interesting too.
Absolutely.
Also, on top of that, if you already are subscribing to our YouTube, you might as well take it over to TikTok and Instagram and follow us there.
Very true.
And then if you want to take it one step further,
for all you Gen X's and millennials that are listening to this,
go like our Facebook page because I do post on there as well.
Right there for you. This episode will be up.
It will be. It will be. But yeah.
Yeah. Because at the end of the day, I'm Jem.
And I'm Renee.
And we're the Intellectual, signing off until next time.
Goodbye.